Welcome back to Autopsy of a Horror Movie. My name is Brucker, and today I am joined by two very awesome guests. I am joined by Dustin of Dustin Can Read and Adam of the Great American Scream podcast. Thank you two so much for coming on today.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us. I'm very excited for this topic.
Ditto here.
I am too. Just so that way everybody can kind of get used to everyone's voice and who is who. I'll let you two kind of introduce yourselves. Well, I guess since I said Dustin first. Dustin, would you mind telling the folks about yourself and your podcast?
Yeah, thanks. My name is Dustin Holden, and I host Dustin Can Read. It's a show where I read modern middle grade and YA books and look at them from an adult perspective and kind of give commentary on them like you're watching a bad movie and, you know, just commenting on the characters. And sometimes we also do some short stories and some audio kind of drama stuff, which Brucker has participated in before. He's actually been on another episode, too, where we were analyzing the upcoming adaptation of R.L. Stine's The Babysitter. And
that was a very fun episode. That was a fun talk.
Yeah. I love those adaptation episodes we're doing lately. So, but yeah, you can find me anywhere. Dustin Can Read pretty much wherever every podcast is played.
Yeah, that rocks. First of all, very excited about the prospect of rereading the old Goosebumps books and all of the what was that series of the kids in Vampires Don't Wear Polka Dot, the Wayside School,
the Bailey School Kids.
Yeah, or one of those. Definitely, yes, yeah. Absolutely, the best. But hi. My name's Adam O'Connell. I'm an actor and a writer, and I'm also the co-host of The Great American Scream, which is a horror and haunted attractions podcast where I take my lovely co-host, Devin Wright, on a ghastly and goofy tour of America's favorite haunted attractions, activities, and locales. We talk about, it's kind of a turn into like a horror 101. So if it's a genre that you maybe recently got it into and you want to find out more about the subgenres and the different ways to explore it, then come check us out. We are on anywhere that you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And yeah, come check us out.
I would recommend both of your podcasts to anyone, honestly. Adam, I've been listening to The Great American Scream since this past summer. I discovered it when I was looking for some really cool Halloween trivia, and your podcast is so educational and it's so much fun. I'm actually a patron for it. I just really cannot express how much I think everybody should go check out The Great American Scream. And same thing for you, Dustin, for Dustin Can Read. Great show, and you're on your second season, and this second season has just been super good. I've been thoroughly enjoying it. Every episode has been great. Even though I don't read the books, I've been able to thoroughly enjoy it. So everybody check out both of these podcasts.
Oh, good. I'm glad. And, you know, and to speak about that, it's like, you know, on your new show now, you know, I didn't even watch the movie Host, and I listened to the episode, and it was really easy to relate to it, even though I hadn't seen it. It wasn't like something I was like, oh, I wish, and I don't know what they're talking about. Like you actually described things, and it was easy to pick up on what was going on. So I thank you for that, by the way.
Well, thank you so much for the kind words. So today we have gathered here to do my first special topics episode, and we are talking about the 4 Scream movies that we have right now. Specifically, because this is Autopsy of a Horror Movie, we are dissecting out a very specific thing from each movie to study it, and we are only examining the opening sequences for each Scream movie right now. Scream is one of my favorite movies ever. Everybody that listened to my old show, Film on the Rocks, knows I'm crazy nuts about that movie. I just love it, and I really like this franchise. And there are so many staples of the Scream movies, and what I think is one of their biggest strengths is always having a very good hook, a very good opening sequence, and really sticks out from the rest of the movie, in my opinion. So that's pretty much the thesis for today, is that Scream movies have really strong openings, and we're going to be discussing those today. So I'm really excited. Thank you two for coming on to do this.
Yeah, I'm also very excited to talk about this because we talk a lot in kind of the horror genre about the pre-Scream horror movie and the post-Scream horror movie, because the first Scream movie did an incredible thing for what horror movies became in the 90s and the early 2000s, the slasher film, the self-aware film. And their opening sequences are a huge part of that, because Scream didn't invent the opening kill. The horror has been doing the opening kill for years, but it kind of made the opening kill into what it is now. and being able to watch for those tropes, being able to watch for all of the different things that you would recognize and like know what's happening, but in like the best way. Like, you know who's going to die. And I think Scream played like a huge part in that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with the whole statement you made about it being where movies, it was pretty much the start of where these, slasher flicks and a lot of movies became self-aware, making fun of their own genres within their movie. And I think that was what was so fun about it, because it was so meta. And, it was like you were part of the people, the cast, and, you were on the couch listening to Randy discuss all the rules, it was like you're part of it. And that's the reason why it was such a big deal. I watched the movies when they came out in 1990. Like the first one came out in 96. I saw it opening night, and I saw the next one opening night. And I saw the third one opening night, which I have some, I have little fun stories here and there, but I loved those movies. And that was, that actually, I got into slasher flicks at that point, At one point in my life, I kind of veered away from it. So I'm more, classic person, not as much into the new stuff every so often, but Scream will always have a big special place in my heart because of that. So.
Awesome. Yeah, I was going to ask, what's everyone's history with Scream and the franchise? Have y'all always been fans of it?
Yeah, I feel like I had always been aware of Scream and becoming like a budgeting like horror fan, but honestly, like when I first started getting into horror, I wasn't the biggest slasher person. And so in my brain, before I saw Scream, I was like, oh, it's another slasher movie. Cool. But then I finally watched it and I was like, oh no, this is like, it is a slasher movie, but it's something else entirely. Cause it does the thing where like, I love when there's a horror movie that exists in a universe where horror movies also exist. But I feel like most of the time when movies do that, it's just sort of like a one-off gag. Like, oh, they're watching a horror movie while the scary thing is happening, or they just like mention another horror movie.
Night of the Living Dead's on the TV. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But with Scream, it's like, that's the plot of it is that they're like, it's not just this one-off thing of like, oh, this is like a horror movie. It's like, it drives the whole plot along. Which I think is like the strongest thing about it and the thing that like made me such a fan of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like this commentary on horror, and especially like at the specific time that this movie came out, it was very much commentating on how the genre was at the time.
Yeah, because this like meta horror movie became so oversaturated in like the late 90s and early 2000s. That you kind of forget that like when you're watching Scream, it's like, oh yeah, it's another one of those meta horror movies. It was the meta horror movie. Like, this is what started the whole avalanche of self-aware horror movies that we got.
So Dustin, you said that you weren't really into slashers at the time. So what was it that made you want to go to the opening night of the first Scream movie?
Oh, totally peer pressure. Peer pressure. My friends wanted to go see it, and I was like, okay. And the funny thing was, I already had that costume. I had that costume for a few years before this movie came out.
Father Death?
Yeah. I don't know if it was called that. I don't know what it was called. I guess it was called that. I didn't have the package anymore. I think it was in the movie, and I think it might have, it might have been called something else as well. Various regions might have different names for it too, But I had that costume for a while, and I already had, and I was like, oh, that was kind of weird. So that, I don't know why, but it made me freak out at my own costume that I had in the closet somewhere. I was like, I don't like this
scary,
anymore.
Yeah.
And, of course, I don't have that anymore. I wish I had it. I never had the packaging. You get rid of that stuff when you're a kid. You don't think about it. And, I was 15 years old when the movie came out. And then, like, the next year, it was written by Kevin Williamson. And the next year, he came out with Dawson's Creek, which is a television show. And I'm a big TV person. So I was like, oh, I love this movie this guy wrote. I wonder if I like the show. And, I watched the show. And he even had, like, a kind of a Scream tribute in the first season. He has an episode, I think it's called The Scare, and it's kind of like, this bad guy, somebody escapes from a local, prison or something, and they're, they think somebody's out to kill, people. It's really silly, but I've loved his stuff a lot since he came out. Like, I've been trying to get you to watch The Vampire Diaries, and I love The Vampire Diaries. And because they actually made The Vampire Diaries story tolerable to watch. The books suck, so... But yeah, I that's how my history with it. It's just been a big love for it from the very beginning.
I first off want to say I love that your reasoning to go to see Scream was Stu's reasoning for killing people. Peer pressure.
Peer pressure.
Oh, that's fantastic. I was 3 years old when this movie came out, so I always grew up in just seeing like the commercials, like the commercialism of this movie, seeing like trailers of it on TV or it being on cable or whatever, and I was terrified of it. Of course, my parents wouldn't let me watch it, but it was like when I was growing up, horror was like one of those things I was so fascinated with, but way too scared to like get into. Like walking through Blockbuster, I would literally scare myself just looking at the covers of horror movies. I remember one day my uncle was babysitting me. I was off playing with my cousins or whatever, but he sat down and was watching Scream by himself because he's stuck babysitting. I guess that's what you do. And I walked in, I was like, oh, what's this? He goes, oh, it's Scream. This will make you shit your pants. Don't watch this. And ever since then, because, this adult figure's telling me, stay away from this movie. It's dangerous. I've been just terrified. I grew up terrified of Ghostface and everything. And I didn't watch this movie till I was in college, actually. I think that's probably why. But this movie kind of awakened in me, like, I like horror now, and that's kind of like what got me into all of this, into watching more horror movies, because I wanted to know, what are these things that they're referencing and talking about, so getting into that. So yeah, this is just awesome. We've all said it, everybody knows this is just a great movie, so I kind of want to get everybody's little history on that. That was a lot of fun. Before we get into the actual topic for today, would everybody agree that each Scream movie has a strong opening? Would y'all agree that is a staple of the franchise?
Yeah, I would say that for sure. I would say that. And they're all unique in their own way, too.
Yeah, and I think it's also part of, like, once Scream became a franchise instead of just this one-off film, it's like, and this is true for any movie, but I think especially for Scream, that the opening scene needs to be the thing that gets you, like, especially for Scream, just, like, hype for what's about to happen. Because, like, by the second movie, we already get it. We know the formula. We don't know what's going to happen, but, like, it's a slasher, but it's also, like, a murder mystery. So, like, we know the formula we're getting into. But the thing that gets us back into, like, oh, my God, it's Scream is, like, the opening scene. And no matter how many times we see, like, okay, Ghostface stalks the person, they say something meta about a horror movie, it's still exciting every single time.
Yeah, it is.
You know what I agree with you about? You said about the franchise thing, and talking about like Scream the TV series. It even had like kind of the opening, the very first episode had like an opening kill that was kind of reminiscent of the movies a little bit. It wasn't as strong because it was a TV show, but it was still decent, and it was fun. It was they had some really, some kills in that show were just horrible, horrible.
Have we all seen the TV series?
I have not.
Yes.
I know it's really bad, but I haven't seen it yet.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, well, I'm not going to tell you anything, but I never saw season 3 because I kept hearing it's horrible. But season 1 and 2, and 1 and 2 are good. It's a completely original story. It just kind of gives nods to the films, but it's not having to do anything with the films.
I say its strongest point in the TV series is keeping up with the whodunit aspect of it, because that's like a really fun thing is piecing together the clues throughout the season. That is the fun part of it.
There's probably like at least one kill per episode, but it's mainly focused on the murder mystery aspect of it.
Yeah, that's fair. I like that for it too. I think that's like would lend itself to the longevity of a TV series.
and apparently, supposedly, I read that they're going to be making another Scream TV series that's going to be more spun off from Scream 5.
Oh, right. Because Scream 5 is coming out when? Next year, they were saying?
2022.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's going to happen, but I did read that they were either talking about it or that was just kind of an idea they were throwing out there.
That makes me interesting about what's the concept of Scream 5 that makes them go, let's have a spin-off of this idea.
Yeah, we can spin it off. Yeah. Interesting.
I want that or it's going to be a new character that they're going to like, that they want to use in a future series, like, a detective or something, you know what I mean? That goes around solving serial killer mysteries or slasher mysteries. I don't know.
I want you to also know that when you told me about this topic and I was like, okay, I have to go back and watch all the Scream movies. For some reason in my brain, I'd remember there already being 5 movies. So I researched 1 through 4 and then I was like, okay, last one, let's watch the opening from Scream 5. And I was searching on YouTube and I was like, why hasn't anybody uploaded the opening for Scream 5? And then I was like, is it called something else? And I Googled it and Scream 5 does not exist. I just completely hallucinated the fact that movie had already come out. It's all
and it won't even called Scream 5. That's the thing that bothers me.
It's called Scream, which I'm upset by that, but whatever.
I would rather be called The Scream if it's going to name it after the painting or something. Really name it after that.
Ghostface. Yeah. Kind of like how they did Leatherface. That'll be whatever. That'd be
Leatherface,
something.
Jigsaw, like
Or
that's
Stab.
a fine formula. Or Stab.
I think the internet would implode if they called it Stab.
Oh my god! If it were like they filmed the actual Stab movie,
Yeah.
you know how
Like,
awesome
that's a
would that
very
be?
like Marvel-esque thing to do. Of be
Wouldn't
like,
that be
oh
cool?
look, like we already have like, oh, well, you want to see the extended universe? Let's watch Stab.
Oh man.
Ooh, man, that'd be interesting. Now I've got ideas running. All right. Go ahead.
That could have been a whole special topic, just naming Scream 5. Alrighty.
Actually, this one's called Stab. All right.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get right into the topic of today. So we'll start with Scream from 1996. This is, of course, just an iconic, super classic opening scene. Drew Barrymore going 100 miles an hour in this. It's the one. It's, in my opinion, the best one out of the four. I mean, obviously, it's the original for this franchise. There's so many just awesome, cool things about this. The phone call, the cat and mouse. One of my favorite things is how we're just tracking Drew Barrymore through the house. Like, we just get to see how just immaculate this house is that she's in. Just glass windows everywhere, open concept.
That was definitely something about like all the Scream movies. I was like, I love all their houses.
Yeah, where do these people?
Where do
like,
these people live? I want
my
to
God.
live there. I just don't want to be killed there. Thank you.
And I mean, I feel like all of them are like this, but this one really, all of the opening sequences are kind of like a short horror movie on their own. And this one really feels like a super like creepy pasta thing to me. You know, you're home alone at night, you get this really eerie call from a stranger, and it turns creepy on a dime. Especially, you know, when he has that slip up of, I want to know who I'm looking at, I want to know who I'm talking to. And it's just really written well to the escalation. It has a really kind of like small gradual build of getting like heightened to its just how scary it is. I just love this opening scene.
Yeah,
You know,
I
it's
agree
familiar.
too.
The girl's home alone. You get that. I know we both keep doing it. Sorry. But yeah, the girl's home alone, and you know the phone call from a stranger. You know, she's either a babysitter or she's by herself. Either way, you know, it's just something that we've seen before. And then how is this one going to be different? And it turns different really quick.
Yeah, I was gonna say about like the familiarity of it too is that like a lot of modern suspense scenes or kind of like these cat and mouse scenes that we see in slasher films now are like colored very differently. There would be like, I feel like if this were made in, especially in like the advent of like paranormal horror that we got in like the mid 2010s, it would be dark, it would be quiet, there would be like that suspense music in the background. This is like, honestly, the first half of this scene feels very safe. We're in a totally lit house. It's just like she's just talking. There's no like shadows or like, oh, I feel like I hear something or fake jump scares or anything. It's very safe up until that kind of wham line of like, I want to know who I'm looking at. Because even the first half, if it's like a little weird that she doesn't know who she's talking to on the phone, like she's very comfortable, it seems. And therefore we're comfortable until like it totally switches on a dime, which I think is a lot more effective than just doing the straight up kind of like from the beginning, it's like dark and eerie or whatever.
Yeah, and it's great too because I like what you said. Like, we don't open up with like a POV of Ghostface. Like, we don't know where he's at. We don't even know he's there actually. And like the only presence we get really is the phone call. So he could literally be anywhere. And like you said with Drew Barrymore, we haven't seen her break any rules of horror movies yet. So we don't really know if we're all assuming because she's a star at the time. Like, there's no way that they would do this to Drew Barrymore. And that was like the big twist of this too.
Yeah, that's what I think is one of the biggest things with the Scream movies is like people always kind of dunk on Casey for like, why did she keep answering the phone? But I think
to do. Yeah.
yeah, like I think the biggest thing about these movies is that like Scream is about characters with genre awareness versus the characters that don't have it, and it's not their fault that they don't have it. It's not her fault that she doesn't know she's in a horror movie. Like if I got a phone call like this, I would be totally freaked out, and like if it continued, I may even like call the police or whatever. But I don't think I would 100%. But like I wouldn't automatically go into like game mode and be like, oh, I'm getting a dumb stupid call
right
from some like prank line or whatever, because you know you're not in a horror movie, or at least you don't think you are.
You know what though? I think like these movies kind of made me paranoid. Like, what if I am in a horror movie? You know what I mean? Like, what if like everything else has just been exposition up until this point, and then I'm gonna, like, oh my god, like this is it. This is where I'm gonna die. And here, cues of rumbling.
I want to die.
Here comes the damn jump scares. And all this stuff.
Yeah.
I dropped something. Wow, yeah, it scares the crap out of me. And the thing was, I loved about the beginning of this, and what before the movie came out, because you guys are too young to remember. I'm sorry, I know I'm the old one saying that. Oh God, but when the movie came out, all the advertisements for it were always talking about, oh my gosh, the beginning opening sequence with Drew Barrymore echoes that of, oh my God, what is her name? Psycho.
Yeah,
Janet Leigh.
Yeah.
Yeah, Janet Leigh. Yeah, and he says it echoes that of Janet Leigh, and I was like, "Ooh, who's Janet Leigh?" And that got me interested in watching Psycho. And then but the funny thing was, I was like, "Well, Janet Leigh's opening was actually like an hour long, and this is like 10 minutes." And actually, that's something I wanted to point out. This one was the longest opening of all 4 movies. It was 12 minutes and 55 seconds when it cuts to the next scene. So I thought that was really interesting. I was like,
That's definitely something I'm going to point out. Yes, I agree with that. It's interesting because this is the one that like really drags the suspension so much in this. Because in the other ones, I feel like Ghostface kind of gets creepy on dimes like really early and doesn't have build up. But I guess that's kind of just because
expecting it.
I guess that's because audiences know what's coming now, so might as well just get to it. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring up Janet Leigh too, because like this does the same thing that Psycho does, which is kill off your top billed star very quickly. And like in Psycho, it took half an hour or 45 minutes or however long
it took a little while. And you got a whole backstory for her. Like she had a whole story.
She's stealing some money, she's driving.
They killed off Drew Barrymore literally 13 minutes into the movie. And like I love that it echoes Psycho in that way. And then I also think it primes the audience for like, okay, truly nobody's safe.
Yeah, exactly. Dustin, what was the theater experience like for this? Like, was it kind of like a ruckus crowd? Or like, just did you feel the shock in the theater?
Oh my God. So, okay, let me give you a comparison. Have you ever seen the Mark Wahlberg, Reese Witherspoon movie Fear? Oh my God. So. Watch that movie. If you like this movie, you will watch. See, I watched that movie like probably, I don't know, I think it came out around the same time. And I think in my memory, it serves me correct, it came out before this. I'm probably wrong, but but yeah, I saw that movie and it was like an adrenaline. It's like, oh my God, you left the movie and you're just like adrenaline was pumping. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, you just had the woo, you had to like shake it off. And that's kind of how this felt because it was so new. It wasn't something like when you saw Speed for the first time, it was like, oh my God, you were just intense the entire movie. And then afterwards it paid off and you're like, oh my God. So you had to like let everything go. It's like you just had a massage where you were tense all day and then you just let it all out. And it was just, oh man. The endorphins that came from that. Just everybody was just talking a mile a minute. It was awesome. It was just, it's like any of those big movies that come out nowadays, or even the water cooler talk about some of the stuff that streams nowadays. It's everybody's so excited about it. And it was really cool.
I feel like it would be reminiscent of like I remember having a similar experience when I saw Hereditary in theaters. The part where spoiler alert, where she gets decapitated, but everyone like I couldn't even hear what was going on because everyone in the theater was like yelling and talking and like everyone was in complete shock and we couldn't even tell what was going on for the next like 5 minutes.
Yeah. You definitely had to go back. I definitely had to go back a couple of times because I know I missed stuff from like just going, oh my God, or closing my eyes, like bracing myself or. It was great. Like I definitely went back several times, and I ended up buying the VHS of it, like because they came out on VHS of the first movie. They came out with like multiple covers, one of Drew, one of one looks like the movie poster, one of Drew, one of Neve Campbell, and one of Courtney Cox. And I ended up collecting them, and then a stupid kid, I sold them. Well, I sold them later on. But yeah, I ended up collecting all of them, and I took my VCR on road trips, like and like we would watch that. I mean, it was really I brought it to school, and like we were taking time off, like we convinced the teachers to let us watch it in class. I'm not kidding. Like I was a big fan of this movie. I even got the script, which I think I posted on Instagram. It's a great movie. I love it.
So something I want to kind of talk about with this is just how a staple of these opening scenes are having multiple kills in them too. I don't think it's ever just one person. It's always multiple people, and it establishes very quickly, because I think that at least in this movie, the first two kills we get are extremely violent and grotesque, the most violent ones of the movie. And like Steve gets gutted very quickly, and it's very gross. And then Drew Barrymore as well. And something that I never realized before until I rewatched it for today's episode, you see the steam coming off of her guts as she's hanging outside.
Crazy.
And you see it on Steve too, I think, a little bit.
I want to say, I couldn't tell if it was Steve or the pool behind him, but I trust you.
Probably a little of both, actually. They probably did both.
It's just it's so visceral, because I like to talk about types of fears that these movies tap into, and this is really tapping, obviously, death, but we're also getting some like body mutilation as well, which is like a kind of like different type of fear as well. And also separation. We see how isolated Casey is, like in this house. In this house, you don't even see any neighbors. And Ghostface even points that out to her. It's like, if you call the cops, they want to get here in time. So you really get that fear of, oh my God, I am alone. I am separated from help. I am just on my own doing this. And it really puts you in her shoes of, what do you do?
Yeah, and I think that like it's very one of the more powerful points of Scream is how grounded in reality it is, with like realistic, not only with the realistic gore, but also in like Ghostface as a killer. Like Scream is ridiculous, obviously, but also it's like a complete and utter realism. Like it's not like a Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees situation where sure they're people, but also they're like indestructible, or they can't be taken down. Ghostface is truly just a dude in every movie.
High schooler.
It's just a person. So like, this could happen 100%. It is that grounded in reality. But I also think that's what makes Ghostface such an interesting villain. And we see it a lot in this first scene that like, sure, Ghostface outsmarts Casey, but like physically they're pretty evenly matched. And this is where we start to get some of Ghostface's like pratfalls, which is, I think, just an excellent addition to these movies and to Ghostface. That it's so like, despite how ridiculous and commenting on the genre it is more grounded in reality than I think most slasher movies are.
Mm-hmm, yeah, definitely. I think that the thing is that Ghostface it's like you said, like Ghostface is not some superhuman killer, and that's the thing, and falls down and like gets outsmarted a little bit by chasing somebody, and they runs into a door or something like that. But at the same time, the scary thing about Ghostface is that he won't stop. Whoever's under that mask won't stop and keeps coming back, and then gets right back up even after you've stabbed them or shot them. Gets right back up and keeps coming because they've got that much hatred and adrenaline in them. It's like, that's scary just for a regular person to be that, ominous, and that, that much power they have just from that adrenaline of wanting to kill someone. That's freaky.
Mm-hmm. Do either of you have any theories as to who was making the phone call and who was donning the Ghostface costume in this scene? Billy
was totally on the phone.
Yeah, I think Billy was on the phone.
So
Stu was in the costume. I feel like for most of this first movie, like almost all of the pratfalls have got to be Stu. It's just the way that they characterize him, which might not work out like in the grand scheme of like the plot of the film, but like that's my own personal
that's okay. It's totally fine.
Headcanon while I watch it.
I think Billy was the smart one and would probably be like, you know what, you're going to do most of the kills. That way they can't pin this stuff on me if something goes wrong.
Yeah, he got peer pressured.
That's my personal theory. I do think, though, okay, slightly off topic. I do think, though, the one kill where it was Billy was Tatum. That's the one I think that it was actually Billy.
Oh, he hated Tatum.
Yes.
That's fair.
Hated and also
and probably Tatum was a distraction for Stu, so maybe get it out of the way.
And Stu was hosting, and also it was like the one I guess I'll say unique or like clever kill because it was the garage door. It wasn't like just being stabbed. So that one was a little bit less personal. So I feel like Billy could have just pressed the button and do it. But
yeah,
anyways, that was my little side tangent.
No, I totally agree with you. Stu is my favorite character in this movie, like partly because like growing up I had a crush on Matthew Lillard and continuously have a crush on Matthew Lillard, but also I think he's just like his character kind of embodies like exactly what these movies are, and even though he doesn't appear in the rest of them, like there's always a stew of some variety or shape or form in the following movies.
Mm-hmm. And I love Stu so much in this movie. That Matthew Lillard goes 100 miles an hour in this movie.
So good.
There's so many times where he does like the ghost face, like he sticks his tongue out a bunch to make it look like, and it's just like a clever, full, funny little like Easter egg. I geek out every time I see it. I think that some of us have kind of like said some things about what we think that this opening scene is commenting on, but do you think that there is any sort of like commentary about this opening scene?
Don't live out in the boonies by yourself. Like, that's the thing that's what's scary about that. And, like the setting, it's kind of like, don't just, it's almost kind of like if you looked at it today, it would be like a commentary on white privilege. She's just so like, oh, okay, nothing's going to happen to me. I'm just talking to this guy who I don't know, who's kind of weird and kind of mysterious and, won't get off the phone and keeps calling back. And she just kind of.
Damn, he's got a sexy voice.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a problem with that. So that's if you think of it that way, it's kind of like, yeah, she's kind of got that. I'm the white girl. Nothing's going to happen to me. I'm always going to be taken care of. It's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
No. And you're out here by yourself. And yeah, that's what you set yourself up for failure.
It's almost quite literally like she thinks she's the main character and she's not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, I'm the final girl. No.
You're the final girl for the first 13 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's
in
the
your
thing
movie,
too.
maybe she had like a whole thing built up to this point. We just didn't get to see it, And
Yeah, I was going to say, like, this is also a great final girl scene.
Yes, it is.
But it's at the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
I feel like they're going to do a prequel based on Casey, just like leading up to her.
I know. Poor Casey. She doesn't need that. We already got
Casey of Woodsboro.
Oh. Yeah, I kind of, same thing that you were saying, Dustin. I was kind of really feeling, separation and how like scary that could be. But in a more like meta sense, I felt like this whole opening scene, you could probably say for the whole movie too, that this is just Kevin Williamson's love for Carpenter's Halloween. There's so many fun references to the movie. She directly references Michael Myers in this opening scene, but it definitely feels kind of like a babysitter killer without the babysitting. The line that her dad says, go on down to the Mackenzies, that's what Laurie Strode says. And I was just feeling a lot of just love for Halloween in this movie, or in this opening scene specifically. So I just kind of like, oh, this is kind of just like a little meta fun, like, hey, remember that movie? That movie was awesome.
Yeah.
You can definitely feel the love, and I think that was a big influence in the beginning of the writing of this, especially. Mm-hmm. I remember he said that in some interviews, that Halloween was the mega influence for this movie.
Definitely. And Billy Loomis, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So let's move on to Scream 2, the sequel to this movie. I don't know why, but this opening sequence sticks out to me so much. And I think it's because it takes place in a movie theater. And it's
surrounded by people.
Yeah. It's loud. This is a loud opening scene.
It's wild. It's a ruckus opening to a movie that nobody has seen, but everybody seems to already know everything for it.
It's crazy.
Well, I mean, you got to think these murders were like big news. The whole Gail Weathers thing. She was a reporter.
It's based on the book, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So everybody was talking about it, and of course, when they make it to a slasher film, people are like, "Oh yeah, that thing. We got to go see it."
Like in the world of in the universe of Scream, you're just dressing up like Jeffrey Dahmer going to the movies.
It's so weird.
That is the weird thing. Yes, that is what. No, and the thing was, it wasn't them just dressing up. The studio sent all these free costumes to this one theater. Was it just to this one theater, or was it to like all the theaters that were premiering this movie at that time?
Like, it's
like what?
Crazy
What did they? Who does that? What studio would spend that money? And they're glow in the dark, and
glorifying the death of real people heinously, and we're just and you're putting the face of that killer on your poster, and hey, everybody dress up like him. It's fun to be.
They don't even have the thing to change the costume. At least put him in a different costume, gang.
Yeah,
I know that's I agree with that. Give him a different ghost face or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing was, and then they also have this weird flying ghost face when they walk in. He's flying up above the audience, and I'm like,
who are these
what
people?
The hell? And they're just going nuts. And what theater would let all these people go nuts in the theater like this? What manager would be like, oh, this is fine. All these kids can go nuts, tear the place apart. That's totally cool.
It kind of reminds Adam. I think that you would know this. Was it William Castle that did that for his movies? He had the skeleton flying in the movie theater?
He had the skeleton for the House on Haunted Hill. I think that would fly out over the audience for like one scene. It is very William Castle-y, and also it reminded me a lot of like a Rocky Horror Picture Show like midnight screening, but like that's accepted because everybody at a Rocky Horror screening, or most people, have seen the movie 50
You're
times.
expected
So
to do all this.
you can cause a ruckus. This is crazy to me.
It's nuts.
The movie is starting and they're just screaming their heads off on top of it. I'm like, are you not going to watch the movie you came to see? Like,
and then also, but what that kind of like lends to the movie Scream 2 is that like you immediately know what bad news this is going to be for these two people that we meet. You're like, oh, that's it. They're in trouble.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where I'm like, oh, I want Jada Pinkett Smith to be in the rest of the movie. Like, you know, I would love to see her in the rest of this. But, you know, I just love, again, I just kind of love that this all takes place in a movie theater. I don't know why. I felt, Dustin, did you get to see this movie in theaters?
oh yeah, I definitely saw it, and I had to go pee afterwards. So you imagine, I'm like, oh god, I don't want to go to the bathroom because I had already like drank the whole soda. Just wait, because we got there early to get good seats, and you're sitting there for the longest time, and you don't want to move. And then when you do, and you're like, finally, I'm gonna go pee, and then the movie's gonna start, and you're like, oh, I guess I gotta hold it. I don't want to miss the beginning of the movie, and then and then the start of the movie, I'm like, oh, I gotta go pee. God, I don't want to get killed. So it created paranoia instantly.
Yeah. It also sticks out a lot, too, from the other three movies because there's no phone call in this. This isn't like a Ghostface, like, kind of cat and mouse thing. It's really weird. Like, I'm trying to figure out the logistics of all this. So, was Ghostface just hanging out in the bathroom stalls waiting for someone to listen to them take a shit or something?
I guess, because that's the other question, too. Like, is that we don't see the specific, like, process, like we don't see the process of Ghostface targeting in any of them, but like we don't particularly understand why them.
Yeah, exactly. Or how
we do later on in the movie. We find out because their names are Maureen and Steve.
Oh, doy,
and then the third person is Sarah Michelle Gellar, which is Cece, and that's a nickname for Casey. He's the person, the copycat killer,
with
killing
the
off
same
people with the same
names.
names.
But how do they know the names of these
also
two people?
how
Did they know them?
Apparently, they all went to school there.
Oh, okay.
Right? They all went to the same school. Right. So Ghostface is watching them go to this movie, which I'm like, so you waited to see if this guy was going to go to the bathroom at some point. I don't know. That's been watching like how many times you go to the movie and he instantly goes to the bathroom every time. That must be the only reason why. All right, he's going to go to the bathroom. He always does, right at the beginning of the movie. He
had the popcorn person like put like extra sugar or something in the soda to make him go. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to need a lot of salt on this popcorn so I can drink a lot of soda so that he's got to go to the bathroom. Yeah.
Yes. Perfect. Yeah.
And then I'm going to sound all perverted, like whatever in the stall next to him. I don't know what that was about.
It's a weird plan for Ghostface this time. It works for him, but like it's a weird plan.
Yeah,
the thing that bothers me about this plan and what this guy's reaction, I can't remember, Steve, his name's Steve. Steve's reaction is, why is he putting his ear up to the stall wall when it's just a stall wall? It's not even a full, so he could just hear it the exact same amount that he could without putting his ear up to it. Because he's in a bathroom, everything's echoing around, you know. So I mean,
in best case scenario, you're listening to somebody talk to themselves through a poop. Like that's the best case scenario. I don't know.
It can't be that interesting.
What you're getting?
I think that's only acceptable for children.
Like I've been in public bathrooms where I heard people talk to themselves. I really don't mind or care what is happening.
Dude, I'm just like AirPodding up. Like I don't want to hear you. You don't want to hear me. Let's just pretend. Let's just be civilized and get through this.
I can't stand people Bluetooth in their conversations and then walking into the bathroom.
But, those people are animals and should be arrested.
Why would you want to put somebody on the other end? Why? Hey,
like, I don't. What's happening?
I don't want to hear this on the other end of the line. Why are you doing this to me?
People think they're so important. They think they can't miss that much of the conversation. The 3 or 5 minutes.
Give it 3 minutes, gang. Like.
Which also, speaking of lengths of time to go to the bathroom, the two ghost faces that are at the urinals, this is huge full bladders. They're there for a good minute. That was something I was saying to my girlfriend as I was watching this last night. I was like, this is unrealistic. Guys don't pee for that long. They just don't.
Pee for that long.
Unless something's wrong. No. Like,
they must have stood in line for forever and drank.
Or I'm waiting to the end of their showing or whatever. To also, everybody's so hype about this movie, but while it's playing, like everyone's in the lobby, everyone's going to the bathroom. Like, y'all, I thought you wanted to see this movie.
But the whole theater is full. So, like, how many theaters are showing this movie?
Yeah, really. Because they have the big inflatable thing outside, so they must be like every theater is showing this movie.
It's not just inflatable; the thing is mechanical, and it has an arm stabbing
crazy.
down to the street.
And like, it's such a good level of camp for the it's all ridiculous.
I love it.
Way more ridiculous than the first one, but it's like the perfect level of camp for what Scream kind of becomes as a horror franchise.
I love it. It's kind of like the movie is like excited for itself too. Like, it's awesome.
It knows you're excited. It's excited. Like.
Well, I mean, it's very obvious the studio does not give a shit about what the real events it's based on, because I mean, they took it from the book that Gail Weathers wrote, and then they ended up, turning it into this thing that Heather Graham is in, and all the stuff that happens, like she's taking a shower, but meanwhile she's making popcorn at the same time on the stove that's burning up, and like. Ghostface is on the roof and looking down in the skylight. Like, it's like, oh my God, it's the dumbest thing. I don't know.
I love that,
obviously didn't take any of it seriously.
Yeah, I love that they do that because, like, if this happened and they were, like, in especially in the mid-2000s, if somebody actually made a horror movie that was based on whatever, that's exactly how they would do it. Like, the sexualized opening scene that she even comments on, she's like, why do we need to see her in the shower? It has nothing to do with anything. Which is exactly what a movie would do, and we know that it's over-sexualization because we literally saw what happened in the first movie. She was not in the shower.
And completely
and they add all these
sweater.
we see all these ridiculous details that they added that we know isn't true because we literally saw it go down.
Yeah, because it's almost like they went, okay, but we need to make this a movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Even more of a movie than it already was.
I also just want to know how, because there are like lots of details that are, very similar. Of course, it's trying to be the first Scream movie. I just want to know, how did they get these details? Because Casey and Steve died, and so did Billy and Stu. So it was just kind of like, how did they piece this together?
Yeah.
With no witnesses? Just nobody saw this.
That's so weird. I didn't even think about that. But like, they must have had some.
Well, I mean, that's the kind of the crime scene investigators are like, all right, well, this is probably what happened based on this,
And then she said Jason instead of Mrs. Voorhees. So classic Friday the 13th killed question. We see it a dozen times a year.
Yeah.
I do like this a lot because, as I said, I love how campy and like just really ruckus and just off the wall it is. I do feel like, though, it is commenting on kind of how callous audiences are. I can't say that word. Just how callous people are. And
in the audience.
Yes, in the audience. And I kind of also feel like it's sort of commenting on how there's definitely, I feel like, especially in the early aughts and like late 90s, that there was kind of like this fear of how horror movies influence people, especially young people, and that, you see it, you think that since you're watching violence, it makes you a violent person. And Billy definitely kind of comments on this at the end of the first movie. And this one, I think, is kind of really showing, like, this is what you think horror fans are like, that you think that we're excited about watching these real people being murdered and that we are rooting for the slasher killer and everything. So I kind of felt like this opening scene specifically was kind of commenting on people aren't like this. Like, look at the movie theater you're in right now. It's not like this for this movie. Well, it's excited, but it's not going, excited about real killers and everything. That's what I kind of felt like this was commenting on.
Yeah, because I bet that's some of the feedback that they got from the first movie, because Billy and Stu even say that, like, we did this because we love horror movies and, like, that's how we were inspired to do this. So I bet that's a lot of the comments they got from the first movies, is people saying, like, oh, the message of this film is that watching horror movies makes you violent. And so to be able to use this scene to take that and go, no, this is what would happen if watching horror movies made you violent, and, like, this is obviously not the real world, I think is a very smart response to that.
Definitely. And you know what, and it the really cool thing that Kevin Williamson did with this was that he's making that statement, but he's also at the same time he's making a comparison to the first movie, because in the first movie, like we said, there was all this isolation that she's out there by herself,
that's a good point.
and this one, she's surrounded by people. They are within arm's length and no one is helping her. So it's like, you're not safe anywhere. That's basically what you're saying at the same time.
And it's also the only one that doesn't take place inside a house.
That's true too, yeah.
That's true too, yeah. This really breaks the formula, and it's interesting that later on they would go back to the phone call in the house formula.
They definitely played to the trope of to putting the black characters getting killed in the second movie.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have black characters in the first movie, you put them in the second one, and they're the ones that get killed off.
Yeah. I love that they comment on that. The only point that frustrates me about this is then they don't go on to refute it.
Yeah.
Like, they don't go on to break the mold. They just say, like, oh, isn't it, like, funny how this happens? And then they don't, like, do
it's still
something else.
happening. Haha, sorry.
Yeah, like,
I
it's the only thing that bothers me about it, really.
I will say, so I don't know, Dustin, you might be familiar with this, but from the research I've done, the original script, the movie that we have isn't the original script. The original script was leaked on the internet, and they made some changes, including who the two killers were. One of the killers in the original script was Sidney Prescott's her roommate Hallie, who was a black character in this movie that was later on killed in this, but she was going to be one of the ghost faces in this movie. So that would have been really fun to see, just, person of color in this have like a prominent role in this.
Yeah, I think this is like one of those first movies that when people were anticipating it coming out and they wanted to know, like, the ending or who the killer is or whatever the big mystery reveal is, that they started like making false endings of scripts, and that, for that any leaks to the public, no one would actually know what the ending would be. I think this is like one of those first movies, like from the 90s, from the early aughts, that they started doing that with, because of that, because they had to change, like, crap, now we got to change it, or we have to go back and reshoot and change to something else, so they had to start learning their lesson. I don't really remember that as it being, that's interesting to me, but I don't remember that. I remember at some point that in the first Scream movie, like, the dad was possibly going to be the killer at one point from the first Scream movie, but then I think that might have been Scream 3, he was going to be the killer, but I don't know, but yeah, I didn't know anything about that. That was pretty interesting.
I gotta say, I think that would have been a better reveal. I would have been a little bit more shocked by that. I think that would have been more fun, but whatever.
Innocent character you don't see coming. Yeah, you don't have any suspicion towards whatsoever.
Yeah. So moving on to Scream 3, yikes.
That's how you really feel.
Yeah, this, I will say, it's a phenomenal movie to get drunk to, just make fun of. But I think it's
definitely a drinking game movie.
Yeah,
it really is. So Scream 3, I think that this is the one where Kevin Williamson wasn't a part of it. They didn't use his script for it. I feel like you really sense that here. But anyways, so Scream 3, the opening of this, we are getting back to creepy phone calls, and we open up with Cotton Weary, which I thought was a pretty cool opening thing to have. I will say that the first time I watched this, I really did like the opening, because I did feel a lot of tension, and I was really worried about Cotton's girlfriend in this, and it was really cool because this was the first time that we got like two locations in the opening scene: Cotton stuck in traffic and what's going on in his real house, and kind of like that ticking clock of him getting back home in time. So all of that was really cool. There are a lot of things that are kind of stupid about this too. Like, I love how Ghostface pretends to be like a sexy lady on the phone, and Cotton kind of lying about having a girlfriend harkens back to Casey lying about Steve in the first movie in that opening scene too. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But so what all did y'all think about this opening scene?
I definitely think this is where Scream crosses over into parody, like over satire, like not like full speed like Swan Dive, but like kind of steps over the line into it. And this is it's interesting because this is a very plot heavy opening, which we don't really get from the first two movies. They're kind of just isolated incidents. This is like, we are already kind of in the thick of it. We know what Ghostface wants. We know who this person is, et cetera, et cetera. So it's interesting that this is the one that kind of crosses over into being a little bit silly.
Mm-hmm.
You can definitely tell it's written by somebody else. It's not Kevin Williamson. It's a completely different vibe. The feeling, the language used, like the jokes made, kind of fell flat. It kind of feels, and it's the shortest opening. It's only 9 minutes and 22 seconds,
Blissfully.
and yeah, and it's like, well, we're just gonna get to the point, and it just doesn't. I don't know. It feels rushed. It feels rushed, and the only cool thing about it, and it does, like. I know that the part where it's the female is flirting with it's the voice changing device that Ghostface is using in this movie, which I think is kind of a cool device as far as like adding to the who done it, who is it mystery kind of thing. It could be anybody's voice. Who is Ghostface using the voice changer at this point, or is it actually the person? We don't know. So I thought that was really cool, the setup for that. But you can totally just feel that, yeah. I can see the plot as being Kevin Williamson, which it is. The story is plotted out by Kevin Williamson, but the person who wrote it's just like, yeah, we're going to camp this up. And it just doesn't, it falls flat for me.
This was also supposed to be the last film in the franchise, right? Mm-hmm. Before they decided to make 4.
I believe so.
Yeah, because it was supposed to be just a trilogy.
Yeah, so I guess it makes sense that they kind of veer into just going directly into the plot because they have to like tie it up. They have to finish it, and they don't because they go on and make another one. But they're like, this was their goal, was to kind of finish it. And it's also, I think, interesting too that because of that, and because the first person we see on screen is Cotton Weary, that we know he's gonna die, and we go, oh, we're killing characters that we've seen in other movies now. So now. Really, no
one's
safe.
Safe.
Yeah, exactly. Again, we say that every movie, like no one's safe, but really,
we really mean it because we're doing it from the beginning.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like I guess I could see them going, okay, how do we convince people that people aren't safe again? Because this is like what you were saying, Adam. This is the first time that they've killed off an established character that's been in all the movies so far. It would be, yeah. I get what you mean, and it is a good way to kind of reinstate no one is safe because we just killed off an actual character, not a random person you've never seen before.
And the thing is, yeah, he was in the first movie for like a second, like just that footage of him getting put into a cop car. And then, but you remembered him somehow, I don't know how, but we remembered him, that character that was barely mentioned in the first movie and then brought into the second movie. And, we're, okay, now we're getting to care about this character. Like at first you think, oh my God, he might be it, and then you find out at the end it's not him, and he really just wants to clear his name. And then he, you're okay, good. He's, she, turns the, ask Cotton what happened, turns the, and you're like, oh, good, he's going to have a good life. And then you're that's where it leads off for him. Like he's pretty much in the last scene. And then we start off the first scene. All right, we're going to kill Cotton.
Yeah.
Like, what? We just got to like this guy.
They have to kind of make him sound like kind of a dick in order to justify killing him. But like they do the thing where he like lies about having a girlfriend and stuff, which is like a weird, like you could tell they're kind of like, oh, we got to make him unlikable enough that we can kill him, because I
mean, come on, I kind of hate the name of the show, 100% Cotton.
I was about to say
it's like dumb, but it's good.
You like it because it's clever, but at the same time you're like, you douche.
Yeah, it sucks, but like I hate that you picked that because it's so good. My biggest gripe with this scene, I think, is the structure and pacing of it is so weird. We're like constantly starting and stopping, and we get the 2 different like cat and mouse sequences. We get it at first with Cotton's girlfriend and then again with Cotton. And I feel like by the time that it's happening to Cotton, we just kind of like lose momentum of it. Like we already got it. We saw the kill. We saw the like, and then we do it again. Like we didn't have to. That's was what felt the strangest about it for me.
And what felt really strange about it for me as well was just Ghostface stalking his girlfriend when she's in the shower, because he like kind of steps all the way into the shower, or into the bathroom, I mean. And I'm just like, how does this character, his girlfriend, I mean, just not notice?
Scream, you're doing the thing you were making fun of.
Yeah, and I don't know. And this is also like the closest to like nudity that we get to, which is also, again, I feel like just diverting more and more from Kevin Williamson's stuff, because Scream doesn't have like any nudity in their movies. And again, I think that's without the lack of that is also a comment on how slashers have been for like the past 20 years or whatever. But it's I will say something that was really effective for me that really creeped me out for some reason was when we're just getting now her story. We're following his girlfriend in the house, and I apologize, I forget her name.
I think it's I have in my notes. It's Christy. Yeah, it is Christy.
Christy. So we're following Christy in the house. And I do love the little cat and mouse between them. It was creepy for me at first, especially when she thinks someone's in the house, but she's not sure yet. And then that rock, like grunge music starts playing. What was it? Creed? I'm not sure which band it was. I can't remember.
It was Creed. Creed did produced the entire soundtrack. It was the worst soundtrack I've ever purchased in my entire life.
Yeah, it
was Creed, which was a Christian rock band.
Yeah.
Decided to score soundtrack a horror flick.
Why'd they pick Creed?
Really bad.
They were available. I guarantee you that's why. And so I guess just hearing Creed is extra creepy. It really does creep me out when I heard it. I was like, that's just weird. Like somebody's in your house and they're like playing with your instruments and playing this really weird music, and now she has to go and turn it off, and that's kind of like,
are you creeped out by Christian rock, Christine? No, not Creed.
Strange.
Do you like weird music?
Wait a minute.
People listening home, it's okay to like Creed, but yeah,
you can like Creed if you want to, but I reserve the right to dunk on you for it.
Yeah.
It's not stopping you, but
yeah, that was the one thing about this, or one element of this that did really kind of creep me out and just go, I don't know, like the hair on my spine and neck just kind of stood up when that whole sequence happened.
Yeah, I think it has good moments, but like overall, it's just strange.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know that it's important to reveal what Ghostface is after right off the bat by like he's asking where she is. I kind of wish they'd held it. Like, I don't know if they could have for plot purposes, but like, I don't know. I like the mystery of the first two of like not exactly knowing why Ghostface is doing this, and obviously they're trying to tie together the franchise and stuff. But like, I don't know. I think they revealed it too early.
Yeah, I agree with that. The only kind of mystery that they sprinkled throughout was all those pictures of Maureen Prescott when she was younger, and I was like, well, we know that, and then you're making it less of a mystery because we kind of get, all right, well, she used to do this, and apparently this is going to lead into this. She has a past, and
which I hate so much how they retcon the first movie with this. I just pretend it doesn't exist.
Some stellar fight choreography, though. I noticed there's some good fights in this.
Some horrible kills though in this one.
Yeah, kills not great.
There's a lot of things that suck about this. I mean,
their
Parker
fight
Posey is not one of the things that
good.
sucks about this. She is awesome in this movie.
was she the actress that was acting super creepy?
She's the one who was acting as Gale.
Oh, okay, yes, of course, yeah.
She gets killed in the closet and thrown through the mirror.
Stupid. Yeah.
God, weird kills. Weird, strange.
Yes, I don't know. I feel like if you want to sum up this movie, it's the scene where Ghostface throws a knife at Dewey and the blunt end hits him in the forehead.
Very, like, in another movie, that would be hilarious.
He has the best luck ever.
Yeah, Dewey.
That's all it is. It's basically, we're just going to show you how much luck Dewey has. Boom.
That man has some plot armor.
Yeah,
makes it out every time. But yeah, this Scream 3, it's just this opening just didn't do it for me.
Same.
I could appreciate it for what it is, but not as much.
Do you feel like there's any sort of like commentary in this opening scene for Scream 3?
Commentary of just get the original writer to write it.
I feel like they're just so focused on like we have to end the Scream franchise that like it's very, very plot heavy.
It is. I think the main thing I was kind of getting was just like, I guess they're trying to kind of comment on how shitty some like Hollywood actors are. Like Khan is complaining to his agent about having to audition for like a slasher movie. He's like, I don't want to do a stupid slasher movie. I want to do something better. And it's kind of like putting down the genre that you're making right now, sort of. It's kind of commenting how people don't want to do that. And I don't know. It was kind of weird for me to hear that in this movie.
Well, I think that it also is maybe about a commentary on like the growing technology of the day. Like when I said the voice changer thing, like things are going to change and people are going to start thinking of new ways to fool you, and get to you and whatnot. So that might have something to do with it as well.
How, Dustin, I know that you said that you like the voice changer. Adam, what do you think about it? Because this is a very controversial thing of this movie. If you like go on like Scream forums and stuff, this is a thing that people debate a bunch.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing about it is like what I talked about with the first one. It takes away from the realism a little bit of like everything else that you see in the previous Scream movies. You're probably like, okay, I could probably be fooled by that, or like I would have done the same thing or whatever. With this, like, I had a hard time believing that like a voice changer could do that, and therefore I would be fooled by it. So it just kind of takes away from some of the reality of it for me.
Yeah.
It's at the time, especially, I totally get that. But nowadays, when you have voice changing apps that can absolutely do this,
yeah.
It's kind of like if you look and watch this movie now, it's not so far fetched. At that time, definitely, it was like, okay, I had to really suspend some disbelief for this. But
Is Ghostface an alien?
Yeah,
exactly.
Because that's the thing too. I don't really have to suspend
Marvel
disbelief
technology
for the first couple of movies, but this one you kind of got to go, okay, all right, Scream, like you go ahead.
I think when I was doing the research, because y'all brought up how the kills in this are pretty dull in this movie as well. When I was reading about this, that was very purposeful because, again, what we talked about from Scream 2, how horror movies influence people. The media was kind of hyping up how horror movies influence violence, and this was around the time that Columbine happened, so I think that they were really trying to go more comedy than horror in this movie, which I guess I get for like the time it came out, but
yeah,
I just wish
I don't think it quite achieved the tone that it wanted, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when this came out, it was because Columbine happened my senior year of high school, and this came out my freshman year of college. And the whole theater was packed, and we had to like sit in the very front row, like right up against the screen. That's how it sucked. But but yeah, I remember that, and we were just like, everybody walked out of there just feeling like that was blah.
Yeah.
I think everybody was like, yeah, no one really talks about Scream 3, and it's because this movie sucked. In comparative to all the others, it really sucked.
Like, you have to watch it if you want to know what's going on, but it's not like...
Almost. The only thing really is at the end of this movie where, like, Stu and Gail's relationship kind of... does he propose to her at the end of this movie?
You mean Dewey?
You mean Dewey, right? Okay.
Wow, sorry.
Matthew Lillard didn't know. That's an alternate version of Scream.
Get all my Deweys mixed up. At the end of this movie, the only thing you kind of like, I guess, sort of need is just seeing that Dewey proposes to Gail.
Yeah, I think so.
At the end of this movie, and that's kind of just the only like real good takeaway from this. I think there is somewhat of a redemption arc for Gail in this movie, I think. But
yeah, and then there's the whole like Sydney is dealing with her, PTSD and dealing with trusting people and putting herself out in the boot. I'm like, did you not learn from your like living out in the middle of nowhere the first time? Like, don't live out in the middle of nowhere by yourself. The dog's not going to help you. They will kill the dog.
All right, so let's move on to Scream 4. I actually really enjoy Scream 4. It's my second favorite movie of the franchise, actually. But in this opening sequence, though, I kind of have mixed feelings about. And again, there's a lot of discussion about this on the forums. Some people love it, some people hate it. It's going right back into the incredible meta commentary that Scream always has. It's movies within movies. We're getting back to the stab movies, which I'm kind of not gonna lie, I like the idea of the stab movies in these. But what everyone think of the opening for Scream 4?
I appreciate the format. I think it's a little on the nose. Like, I think the first two especially were smarter about the satire. Like, sure, they had the kind of like shoe-in comments of like, oh, this always happens in the horror movie. This one's a little like, it's a little obvious for me. I get it, but I think it's just a little bit too much.
Yeah, it's kind of let me think a little bit, and you don't have to spoon feed me.
Like, I've seen 3 of them already. Like, I know. Yeah. I get it, Scream.
Well, I can see that. I can, I didn't expect it to go the way it did, the fake outs. You know what I mean? I think that was the thing that was the shocking part about it, Like, the first 2 movies were shocking as far as, like, how they handled, obviously the first one is the first one that's going to be shocking. The second one was shocking in that it was opposite, like I said. It wasn't, surrounded by people. The third one was just kind of, it was okay. But this one kind of did. It starts off with a shock, but then as you go on, you start, okay, this is kind of funny, and it kind
Yeah.
of went back to the humor, but you're still shocked at the same time. And then you're like, all right, where are we going to stop this? You didn't know where it was going to end, and how it was really going to start playing out, which I liked that. I thought it was something that caught you off guard at first, and like it is still on the nose as in far as like, hey, we're making fun of our stuff. It's really meta,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you're like, you didn't know we were going to do this, and so I
do
thought
like-
that was kind of cool.
I do like that they start off talking about torture porn because this came out and like the really highlight of that kind of phase of horror films. This has nothing to do with anything. I think it's the first set of girls, the Lucy Hale and the other one, where they say they're watching
Shania Grimes.
when they're watching Saw 4 as their movie, which is such a weird pick for movie night because it's like smacko in the middle of the Saw franchise, and Saw is the most convoluted horror franchise in the universe, and you need to have context for like every single movie you watch. So Saw 4 is a weird pick for movie night, but I think that's one piece of very smart commentary is that when they go to talk about the splatter movies and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's totally, and that's what's funny about that is like they picked Saw 4, and then we find out we're watching Stab 6.
Or was it
The
7?
beginning of Stab 6, and then it goes into Anna Paquin and Kristen
Yeah,
Bell,
Kristen
and
Bell.
they're at the beginning of Stab 7, watching Stab 6. Like, it's,
Yeah.
what are we watching here?
I think that's funny, but then like even when they go back to like the real world, there's still like a couple of fake outs. And I think by like the 6th fake out, I was like, okay, Scream, I get it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's I appreciate some of the commentary that we are getting through this about it's again getting back to the original where it's kind of commenting on the state of horror that it's coming out in, and it's kind of talking about how it disagrees with torture porn, how it doesn't think those are actually scary. This movie will scare you kind of and also make you laugh, but it's I also love the one of the first girls in the I think Stab 7 opening. She has the sidekick phone, which was I don't know, just very much dates this, and it's very funny. But it's also adding in a new element instead of the phone call from Ghostface, which I think we get one. You're getting text messages and you're being catfished by this person on Facebook now, and it's kind of showing
Oh god,
all these different new ways of Ghostface can communicate and do its cat and mouse game with you.
And you know what though, that like what you brought up, the catfish part of it, it kind of her commentary on like being catfished, it just shows like just how, and the fact that I like Saw 4 and like really this is crap, this torture porn crap, like it just shows how dead like they are to like they're not reacting to it at all. Like it's just common. It's nothing. It doesn't scare me at all. You know what I mean? Like this guy's stalking you, and
Yeah.
I mean, and the fact that she kind of says, "Oh, he just says stuff like, "What's up? You're hot. I want to kill you." You know, I'm like, what?
Which
Dude
is
said, "I
like-
want to kill you," and you're still talking to him. He's really hot though. And they're like, "That's Channing Tatum. You're being catfished," and you're like, "What?"
It's like you get so mad at her in the moment, and then it's revealed that they're not real. They're like the film. So like I like that in the sense of like they are now satirizing how they dumb down the characters for horror movies. But then also at the same time, you kind of wasted your initial energy of like being mad about the characters on things that aren't actually happening.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing I think about these fake outs that don't do it for me is that we get two of like the Ghostface phone calls, the "Who is this?" the like iconic sort of line. We get it one when within the first fake movie. And then we get it again later with the real girls. And I think when we get it the second time, it's like lost its zing. Like we already got the "Who is this?"
Yeah.
And now when it's real, when it's the actual characters, it's not as like exciting because we already saw it happen once.
Well, don't you think like the fake out openings for each one leading up to that point, maybe that's what it's supposed to do, is kind of make you feel desensitized to it?
Yeah,
at
I think
first,
that
and, like,
too.
You know what I mean? Like that's what I was saying. Like these characters, like in the first one, are already desensitized. Talking about, oh, we're watching Saw 4, and they're in Stab 6, and then the Stab 7 people, the girl is obviously desensitized because she stabs the other girl, and then it goes into the quote real world of Scream, and then you're just kind of you're desensitized, and now you're watching this, and you're like, whatever. And now we've got to, and basically in a way, it's kind of like he's like, now I've got to gain your trust to watch the rest of this movie, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like you're going to want to watch this because it's going to get, we're going to play with it a little bit.
Yeah.
And they do, and it's a really good job.
I will say, Dustin, that it when we get to the real world characters, the movie does reel me back in because I do enjoy the chase scene that we get. Because that one did it was kind of blood pumping for me, and I did enjoy it actually, and I do love how it ends with the garage door again, kind of like harking back to Tatum from the first movie. And
there's even a nod to Halloween there when the one girl gets thrown through the window through the French doors, kind of like the guy in Halloween did at one point.
And I also think that's kind of like the opening of the first Scream movie where he threw the chair through the door instead of this time with the body.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many like different little things you can like point out like that, which is I like that it's referencing itself in this. And like I said, it does win me back with that chase scene because I was you do that thing where you yell at the TV when you're watching these slashers, and I was yelling when she got hid behind the door, and then for some reason she turns the light on. I'm like, he would see that. I don't know. I was just kind of like yelling, but it won me back with the chase scene.
That's fair.
And it's okay if you don't like it. Yeah, you're allowed to have an opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but at the beginning of it, you're like, okay, whatever. We just saw this 2 times, and then now, but then the chase scene comes. It's like, all right, so this is the real one.
Yeah, all right.
This is the one we're watching. So, oh crap. All right.
Yeah, that's the thing. I definitely like this one better than Scream 3. But I just didn't do it for me like the first 2 did.
Oh yeah, and that's totally fine. Yeah, it's definitely lower on the totem pole. Like the first 2, I think are really good. Stands out a lot. This one, the rest of the movie, I think it's really good, but I don't care too much for the opening.
You can kind of like, if you want to think about it, Scream 1, Scream 2, written back to back. He was in the middle of, I think it was the faculty or something. Yes. And he didn't do Scream 3. And so maybe he just lost his momentum because it took a while for him to come back to do Scream 4. It was, good, 15 years at least almost. Mm-hmm. And so it's not going to be, the momentum is not going to be the same, and plus, your writing style is going to change a little bit. The atmosphere of the movie industry in general has changed. So it's going to be a little bit different. And, I think he did a great job as far as like bringing it back. But I think the one that's the new Scream 5 basically is the one that's going to be the one that's really going to have to win people over because it's not written by him, and it's the first one that the story's not even done by him. So
really?
I don't think so. I don't think he's done the story for this because he's just like, I wish them luck, like that kind of thing. So
okay, I think he's the executive producer at least.
He might be producing it because it is his characters and his, but I don't think he's actually done the story.
Interesting. Well,
I think so. Don't if I'm wrong, take that out, please. Don't make me look like a fool.
I definitely want to talk about Scream 5 at the end of this, but what you were saying, Dustin, about how his momentum in writing and everything, I think that we kind of need to like take a moment to kind of see the run that Kevin Williamson went on in the 90s. So he had, Scream 1, 2, and he didn't do 3, but he wrote the plot, you said, but Scream 1, 2, and 3. Also at the same time, he had The Faculty, I Know What You Did Last Summer, teaching, I think, was it Teaching Mrs. Tingling or
Mrs. Tingle.
Mrs. Tingle teaches Mrs. Tingle. I haven't seen that, but
it was originally named Killing Mrs. Tingle, but then Columbine happened, so they changed it.
So he was going on a kind of a tear in this genre for back to back. So,
and not only that, like I said, he was actually the showrunner and the creator of Dawson's Creek for quite a few years, So,
but yeah, and I guess kind of like we were saying that now we're coming back to Scream 4, and I think that this came out like 10 years after Scream 3 or something like that.
It was a bigger gap.
Yeah, so I guess he had to think of a way to bring everyone back in and make you familiar with the DNA of the franchise, commenting on everything, the state of the franchise, and then I guess I don't know. It's a mixed bag of an opening scene, but
yeah, and that'll be the same gap for 5, right?
Oh,
it'll be 10 years again.
Yeah, about like 12 years.
Yeah, it will be another 10 years about. But you can definitely feel the difference. Even though it's written and it's not the exact same. As Scream 1 and 2, you can still feel that it is written by him. Like, it's just that sharp humor, and just the willingness to go ahead and kill somebody off, and not get used to them, and that's totally a Kevin Williamson move.
All right. Well, before we kind of wrap things up, was there a okay? I'm going to table Casey Beckard because I feel like that we would all really appreciate her in this and everything. But was there a specific kill from any of the opening scenes that like really stuck out to you?
I mean, I think my favorite moment, but like again, tabling Casey, is Jada Pinkett Smith's character dying in front of the movie screen. Like it's a campy shot. It's such a campy shot. It's so dramatic, but like it's just it's so like it's the perfect kind of camp and so well done of her. Like I think she lets out this like cry in front of the projection screen before she falls to the ground, and it's so good.
Yeah.
That's exactly my favorite opening is Scream 2. It's because of that. And not because I'm like, oh yeah, because I think it's campy. And it is campy, but I think it's just because it's so scary to think that you are around people who look like your killer, who are not going to help you. You're bleeding. The person's still stabbing you. You go up in front of everybody, and they're still kind of like not getting it until you die. Do they finally get that? Oh, that was real, And it's so horrifying to me. You expect if you're alone out in the woods and you get killed, no one's going to be around to help you. But if someone's around you, you expect to be helped, and they're not helping her. Oh my God, it's horror. It's terrifying to me. Oh God.
Yeah. I actually, I was going to say the same thing as well. Yeah, that opening scene in the movie theater, her, dying in front of everybody, and you kind of see everybody slowly change their tone a little bit. Like some people start to take off the ghost face mask and like, oh wow, like what's happening? I probably could have had a little bit more of the audience's reaction to this, like in the movie theater, I mean. And, but so Scream 2's opening is awesome. That kill was really good. The Steve kill in Scream 2 was really weird. I don't get it, but it's, I think, still better than some of the stuff we got in like Scream 3 and 4, so.
Bathroom kill.
So Scream 5, or now it's just called Scream, which, whatever, I'll roll my eyes at that. It's coming out in 2022. Do y'all have any predictions for how the opening of Scream 5 could go?
I feel like, because you said before about having to win audiences kind of back, especially since it's such a big gap. I think they're really going to harken back to the first movie in some way or another. Because I think that's the opening that has stood the test of time for both like people who were previously fans of the franchise and people who maybe haven't seen or only seen the first one or haven't seen the rest of the movies. That's going to be the kind of iconography that they think of. So I think in order to kind of draw everyone back in, they are really going to like relate back to it in some way or another, whether it's in format, if it's in reference, how, I'm not sure how, but I feel like that's the move they're going to make.
I think they're definitely going to do, like you said, they're definitely going to make the callback to the first movie. Obviously, they already renamed it the same name as Scream, so it's Scream again. So they've definitely like, all right, we're kind of doing a soft reboot where it's still an ongoing story because they're obviously bringing back the original characters. They're older now, so they're not, doing that kind of reboot, but they're still using it as an ongoing story. But it's like soft reboot where like, all right, new generation, this is how we're doing this now. But I think, as far as opening sequence, every single opening sequence has been two people. It's, usually a couple, but like the last one has been, Scream 4 was, two people, then two people, then two people killed, in sequence. But this will probably be another couple. And I kind of feel like maybe they'll do a gender flip on the original. So maybe it'll be a final guy in the beginning. You know what I mean? And not a final guy, but you know what I'm saying?
Well,
maybe
I would
the
love
girl
to
will
see
get killed
that.
first.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll do a gender flip to where kind of like, hey, equality, boom.
I mean, I would love to say that.
Sometimes the girl gets killed first, guys.
I always think about Nightmare on Elm Street 2 and how good a male Scream Queen is and how nobody's done it since, even though it was so good in Nightmare on Elm Street 2. So I would love to see a Scream take that on. I think they would do it well.
Something that I would hope to see is that since this is kind of like a soft reboot and it kind of commenting on just how we've had so many reboots lately, especially in horror, I think it'll be really funny if they show, because in the first Scream, they show Halloween on the TV and in back, they're all like kind of watching it throughout the movie. It'll be really fun if they show Halloween 2018 is on the TV now in the background.
Yeah.
I would love that little nod.
I think that would be smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was funny because they used Halloween H2O in Scream 2, didn't they?
Oh yeah, they did.
Yes. And
that was Kevin Williamson as well. He wrote that as well. So
Yes. that okay. I really hope that we get that now. Well, Adam and Dustin, thank you so much for coming on. This was so much fun to just kind of talk about the opening scenes of Scream. Any final thoughts on this franchise or anything before we wrap it up?
I mean, if you haven't seen them and you think that like you've seen every meta horror movie, or if you don't like meta horror movies, still try Scream, because it I don't want to say it invented it, but it kind of codified it and does it super well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll I'll jump on top of that. Like, I think there are a lot of new slashers that came out after that as well. And this one is just like, I want to say, the granddaddy of meta slashers. That's the one you got to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again, Adam and Dustin, so much. Adam, will you please tell people where they can find your podcast and if they want to follow you?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, that you can find The Great American Scream on anywhere that you get your podcasts, and we're also on Twitter and Instagram at Great Scream Pod. And then I'm also on all platforms at Adam J. Ocon, O-C-O-N. If you want to follow me, I post scary stuff and pictures of my dog, so...
Yeah, you can find Dustin Can Read pretty much everywhere you can find podcasts, and you can find me on Twitter if you want to just follow me and see the stupid things I say at Dustin_Holden, or you can actually follow more of my stuff. There's more of that on Dustin Can Read on Instagram, so just look that up and you will find me there. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. This was so much fun. Everybody be sure to go and follow them. I will have links in the show notes, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Thanks for having us. Bye.
Bye.